MMA Fighting presents Timeline: Jon Jones vs. Thiago Santos. August 9th, 2008. UFC 87 Seek and Destroy, Minneapolis, Minnesota. The 6-0 Jon Jones makes his UFC debut on the prelims of UFC 87. Jones wins a unanimous decision over Andre Guzman. Jones will go on to defeat UFC Hall of Famer Stephan Bonner at UFC 94. The 11-2 Jake O'Brien at UFC 100 by second-round guillotine. Brandon Vera by brutal elbows and punches in round 1 at UFC on Versus 1. This victory was also Jones's first main event. Vladimir Matyushenko by elbows in the first yet again, in a showcase main event in San Diego for UFC on Versus 2. December 4th, 2009, The Ultimate Fighter Finale Season 10. Las Vegas, Nevada. Jon Jones faces Matt Hamill as the co-main event at the Tough 10 finale at the Pearl at the Palms.
Jon, there's obviously a lot of excitement surrounding this fight. A lot of people are excited to see you fight again. And I'm curious, because the last time we saw you in action, UFC 100, I mean, obviously you looked very good there, but it seems as though your career and your life has changed a lot since then. A lot of notoriety, a lot more publicity. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited about it. You know, I have a goal and I have a dream in the sport, and that's to make it to the very top of the ladder. And I understand that, you know, getting to the top of the ladder, a lot of this stuff is going to come with it. So I accept what it is, and I just try to do my best at it. You know, my main focus is just being a provider for my family, you know, being the best man I can be, being some sort of leader and a role model to, you know, younger athletes who want to do the same things or similar things. And, you know, just do the best to make it to the top of that ladder.
Jones would suffer a very controversial loss at the Tough 10 finale. After completely dominating Hamill, Jon Jones would lose by disqualification for using illegal downward elbows.
I try to look at everything in life for the best, and now I'm not worried about being undefeated anymore, so I can go out there and be more relaxed. I think I hit him so many times, and I just didn't understand why I wasn't getting stopped. Like, is he waiting for me to gas or something? Like, what is this? I looked at him like twice. I was like, why am I still hitting this guy?
February 5th, 2011, UFC 126, Silva vs. Belfort, Las Vegas, Nevada. Jon Jones is booked against top-ranked and undefeated Ryan Bader.
Are you surprised that you are a 4-1 favorite, that so many odds makers, are picking you, and that really not a lot of people are actually picking him?
Wow, that's 4-1. That's big. You know, I try not to play into odds. You know, gambling's against my religion, and I just don't gamble too often. I've tried it a few times. I suck at it. A little roulette, but
I'm trying to call you out on gambling. I'm just saying, are you surprised that you're such a big favorite?
Yeah, I'm glad people believe in me, and you know, hopefully no one loses their money. I'll say that.
In what would be his breakout performance of his career, Jones dispatches Bader via second-round guillotine. The UFC would offer Jones a short-notice title fight immediately after his victory.
There are a lot of moments in UFC history that we'll always remember. I think that was one of them right there when you were offered a title shot. Did you even know that that was at stake?
You know, I knew a shot had gotten hurt, but I didn't see that coming. You know, it was awesome, and yeah, God is really good.
This is going to happen on March 19th, right?
Yeah, I got 6 weeks, so I have an after party tonight, but I definitely won't be drinking. It's right back to the drawing board, and I'm just so excited. I'm so grateful for this situation, and I think everything happens for a reason, and I'm not afraid of this moment. I feel as if it's my moment.
I know it's not ideal, but do you think 6 weeks is enough time to prepare for Shogun?
Yeah, I think 6 weeks will be great. I didn't get hurt at all. Actually, my big toe, I might have stubbed it on the way out, but I feel great. I'm already in shape, so right now it could only bring out an even tougher, more vicious, more fit Jon Jones.
Jon Jones now fighting March 19th for the UFC light heavyweight title. How did this whole situation come about?
We literally made this fight down by the octagon. It happened, you know, I found out this afternoon at like 2 o'clock that Rashad was out. And, you know, this is what we do, man. It's one of the cool things. It's not like boxing where if a guy falls out, you got to postpone the fight.
Any concerns at 6 weeks, his age, this might be too soon?
Listen, the guy's proved himself over and over and over again. I mean, he's taken everybody out. Every challenge that's been put in front of him, he's finished. Is he still a young guy, 23 years old? And yeah, he is, but he's so talented. He's so talented, and even tonight in such a big fight, he was in there. I'm sure he was nervous and had all those things, but he was so calm and cool, and he did walk through Bader.
March 19th, 2011, UFC 128 Shogun vs. Jones, Newark, New Jersey. As promised, Jones returns to the UFC cage a little over a month after his last victory in the main event against Shogun Rua for the UFC 205-pound championship.
A lot of people were surprised when they found out that you've been signing your name as Champ 2011. How did that come about?
I believe in the law of attraction, and I believe that that you can speak things into existence. And I believe that when you know where you're going and you know what you want, the universe has a way of stepping aside for you. And me signing my signature with Champion 2011 on it, it can't hurt me. It can't hurt me. It could only help me to believe it even more. So yeah. I mean, it works for me.
Question for Jon Jones. Could you please stand up?
Uh-oh.
Do you really think you could win this fight? Have you seen Alistair Overeem? Have you seen him fight the snake?
Hey, what's your name? What's your name?
Anthony.
Come on, son. Come on, son. Come on, son. Absolutely. I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't think I could beat Shogun. So.
Jones defeats Rua by third-round TKO and becomes the youngest ever UFC champion.
Mr. Hammer, we just saw Jon Jones dismantle Shogun Rua. What do you think of that, what we just saw out there?
I think we saw a transition tonight, a transition of a new generation of fighter. His skill set is unbelievable, and all due respect to Shogun, it was just amazing because everybody knew that Jon had this incredible arsenal of weapons, and his ground game is, also incredible. But still, to see him actually dismantle him the way he did was incredible.
One of my co-managers, his name is Glenn, and he has a family that lives here in the New Jersey area. So before my fights, I like to find a really beautiful site, whether it's the top of a mountain, next to a stream, anything gorgeous, nature-wise. I like to associate nature with different levels of energy and all this. But anyways, it's a different topic. So we find a place in Paterson, New Jersey, where there's a bridge and there's this very powerful waterfall, and there's almost like a little mountain. And it was beautiful, but around this waterfall and everything, it was a really ghetto area. And as the guy pulls us up in his car, he's like, I'm in the passenger seat, Greg Jackson and Winklejohn's in the back seat. He's like, listen guys, before I drop you off here, I want to let you know this is a pretty bad neighborhood, so you might want to be careful. And I'm like, dude, we're we're all MMA guys. And he's like, well, I'm just letting you know, a lot of people get mugged here. Just as he said that, I turned to pull off my seatbelt, and the guy, I see an old Spanish couple like screaming, and they're like running. They look like they're out of breath big time. And I'm like, dude, they just got mugged. And he's like, no. And I'm like, maybe not, I'm tripping. He just put that in my mind. So Mike Winklejohn hops out of the car and he's like, you guys okay? And then she's like, the guy he just broke my window open, and he took all my stuff and he's running. And so I'm like, what? So Mike Winklejohn, without hesitation, he just starts running, right? And I'm like, holy crap. And then Greg Jackson, he just starts running, and they both start running. So I'm like, what is happening right now? So next thing you know, I have like sweatpants on, I have an iPod and my Droid X, my wallet. I'm like, where am I? What's going on? So I'm like, okay, it's time for me to take action. So I take my hands in my pockets, I throw my stuff on the floor, and I tell our driver, I'm like, dude, take care of my stuff. I throw it on the floor, and I just start running, right? And I got these gazelle legs, so I'm running, right? And I'm running, and next thing you know, I catch up to my coaches, and I'm jogging, and there's a sprint, right? I'm like, so what are we doing? We're gonna catch this guy? And he's like, John, you get back. He's like trying to swim move me, like get over me. He's like, get back. You don't need to be involved with this, right? And I'm like, nah, Coach, God, trust me, man. I'll be okay. I'll be okay. So then I put the jets on. You know, I went TO on him. So I put the jets on, and I catch up to the guy. I'm like, how you doing? You're gonna... No, I'm joking. I'm joking. So, anyways, the guy, like, I'm like closing in on this guy about 20 yards away, and the guy's like, you can see that he's starting to get winded. So he's like, you know, he got this stuff and he's running, and he looks back and he usually sees me, you know, 6'4". You got Greg and Wink like behind us. Yeah, Greg and Wink's behind me, and I'm just running like, you know, I'm gonna catch you, right? So the guy looks back, and then he trips over his own foot. And so at the time he tripped over his own foot, I got so scared because I didn't know what I was gonna do when I actually caught him. So I actually like started barking like, I'm gonna get you, like, you know. So the guy's like, he looks back like, oh crap, but he's trying to stand up. And when he was standing up, I approached him when he's like in a, you know, in your march cassette go type of stance. He's like trying to get his momentum back. And one of his behind feet, I just came up with my foot and like scooped it out from under him with my foot, like just kicked him from the back, like kind of kicked his ankle out. And he fell down, and when he fell, he like, you know, scraped his hands up pretty good. And so he's down on the floor, and you know, I'm thinking like, I hope I don't get stabbed right now. So I'm just like looking at him like, should I ground and pound him? And Greg Jackson just comes out of nowhere and jumps on the guy's back, and he starts speaking Spanish, like, you know, and like, I'm like, you know Spanish, all right? So I'm like, let me do something, right? So I grabbed the guy's feet, and then I put him in this move because I went to college for criminal justice, and I had a class defensive tactics. So I grabbed him and I like figure four'd his legs, and I sat on his legs, and he's screaming at us, and Greg's like, you know, speaking Spanish. So as I'm sitting on this guy's leg, catching my breath a little bit because we're sprinting uphill, I realized that I'm in like this Spanish neighborhood, and like all these people are coming out of their houses yelling Spanish across the street. And I'm like, oh Lord, here we go. Like, what is happening? Like, Greg's yelling like in Spanish to people, and then a guy walked up to us, and he's like, yo man, that could have been my mama's car. And once he said that, I was like, yes, they're on our side. Like, I'm like, yeah, you punk, that could have been his mama's car. And so we hold them, and the police come, and you know, at that point, I'm just sitting and I'm resting. I'm like, you know, because I got a fight coming up, so I'm just holding this foot here. Like, man, you got me breathing hard and stuff. And so the police comes, get out of his car, and he's like, what are you doing here? Like, aren't you fighting tonight? And I'm like, yeah, man, I was trying to get my meditation on. And this guy, you know, but anyways, it was great, you know. The police didn't give us a ride back to the crime scene, so we had to walk all the way back through this neighborhood. And I'm looking around and stuff. I don't speak a lick of Spanish. So, yeah, it was pretty interesting. And the lady, she came, and she's like, oh, it's so good to see people like you guys here to help me. You guys cared enough to chase that guy. And the police had told her that I was fighting and everything. She was like, you know, God's gonna be with you tonight, man. You're gonna do good. God bless you, son. I'm gonna watch your fight. And I was like, thank you, man. Then we went, and we all felt like superheroes. We just had the best meditation session ever, and I just felt really good after that. I was like, I gotta win this fight. I got the hard work, dedication, and now I got karma on my side. So it was crazy. It was good.
September 24th, 2011. UFC 135, Jones versus Rampage, Denver, Colorado. Jon Jones returns for his first title defense against former UFC champion Rampage Jackson.
How sick are you of just being around Rampage? They're sort of forcing you guys to be on this traveling circus here.
You know what? I'm actually liking it. I'm liking it a lot. You know, Rampage's personality is a very unique personality, and if you're not familiar with it, it can almost come across as it can take people back, a lot of people back. You know, Rampage has that, you know, in your face, you know, oh, I'm gonna knock you out, kid, and all this, and Mr. T talk. And the more I'm around it, the more I've humanized him, the more I've realized that he's just some heavy-handed Mr. T wannabe, you know, that I'm getting ready to fight, instead of this intimidating, I'm Rampage Jackson and I'll knock your head off type of thing, you know. So now I'm like, all right, like, enough fun and games, let's see who's a better fighter, you know. So it's actually helped me humanize him a lot, being around it.
He and others have fueled this sort of this notion that you are cocky and trying to get fans to to go against you because you've accomplished so much at such a young age?
Honestly, I think that's what it is. Literally, it could be anything. It could have been any other word, and that would have tagged and kind of stuck. But they chose the word cocky, and the reason why they're calling me cocky, I think, is because of my age. You know, I'm a guy who's confident in myself, and I feel good about myself. I've accomplished a lot at it so far, and just really getting started. And it's sad, but it's two African American men that's calling me cocky. So maybe they're hating on me for being the new fresh black face on the map. I don't know.
Jones wins by submitting Jackson in round 4.
Basically, our strategy was to just fight long and to make each shot count. Use a lot of the low kicks to set up higher kicks and shoot straight. Rampage just knocked out some of the best in the sport, but he tends to knock them out when they're swinging hooks, and he has that shell defense. So we figured if we shot straight, our chances of landing things would be more successful. So that's why I did a lot of up kicks and a lot of straight punches, because he does the best when he's rolling off of hooks.
So what about Jon Jones impresses you?
He has a lot of weapons, a lot of technique. He's quick, he's very athletic. He has tremendous potential. And, but I'll tell you something, Rampage had the best head movement he's ever had and really impressed me tonight. If he would have let his hands go tonight, it would have been something. For some reason, he didn't.
Now, what about Jon Jones in terms of his legacy? Do you think that he could actually be one of the best fighters of all time? Because right now, no one has ever even come close to really putting a chink in his
say that. I'm not going to say that about anybody. I don't know, anybody here that I'm going to say, is going to be one of the best fighters of all time, because of all time is a long time. He's a great young man with tremendous potential. Are there people out there who could beat him? Maybe. I
noticed him actually go for the front kick to the face there. Did you see that as well?
Yeah, him and I did talk about that, but he hasn't, he hasn't learned it yet.
When did you speak to him?
Taught it yesterday, day before yesterday.
Wow. So you actually have a relationship with Jon Jones?
Well, he's a kind of a friend. Yeah.
December 10th, 2011, UFC 140, Jones versus Machida, Toronto, Ontario. Jones is set to defend his title for the second time against former UFC champion Lyoto Machida.
Thank you, guys.
My little baby bro.
Oh, thank you.
Kids.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jon Jones defeats Machida by second-round guillotine.
Is that the toughest fight of your career?
I think it's safe to say it's the toughest fight since I've learned how to fight. My UFC debut was pretty tough, only because I was actually engaged in a really tough fight, and I didn't really have tactics or have philosophy. Now I have tactics, I have philosophy. I feel as if I'm a seasoned fighter. I know what I'm doing, and I still went through a pretty strong fight. So I think it's safe to say that it's the toughest fight since I've known how to fight.
How'd you set up that choke? That was one of the more impressive moments of your career.
All right, I'll show you. So what you do is you grab it here, and you okay?
I'm great.
Right.
That felt great.
Cool.
And then you just walked away like ain't no thing. Like it felt like you had a little swag in your step when you walked away there. Just let him fall to the ground.
Hey, it was a good fight, and I'm just grateful that I won it.
Would you say this is the greatest run, 365 days calendar year in UFC history?
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Do you feel as though Jones gets the respect that he deserves? And I know he gets a lot of hype, but considering who he beat in his last 3 fights, and considering the fact that he finished them too, how can you not say that he's the best fighter in the world right now?
Yeah, well, the thing is, again, to call him the best fighter in the world, if you look at Anderson Silva's run since 2006, you know what I mean? Jon Jones is still young. He's had an incredible year, probably one of the greatest years in UFC history. He is on his way.
April 21st, 2012, UFC 145, Jones versus Evans, Atlanta, Georgia. The light heavyweight champion is set to face former training partner and former UFC champion, Rashad Evans.
The reason I say that I felt as if Rashad's fighting out of anger, it's not that he's gonna be in the cage looking like this at me, like giving me a rampage. He's what I meant by that is that he's focused so much on the storyline, and telling his story about Greg and Wink and how I'm so cocky and things like that. Where me, I kind of feel like I'm being more reactive instead of really trying to attack his personality, because I really don't care about defending my personality. I have a very strong fan base and I have a very strong hate base, and it is what it is. So I realized that I'm here to complete a mission, and that's to have my hand raised. And that's why I said he's kind of fighting out of anger, because all that pre-fight drama stuff is just shouldn't take too much of your emotion, too much of your effort. I've been focusing on tactics since I signed that contract, tactics and strategy.
Jon Jones cruises to a dominant decision.
I think I was a little intimidated at some points to just believe in my ability and speed and coordination. So I think as a result, I didn't fight as clean as I would like to have. But it was a great fight, and I respect Rashad a lot and thank him for taking this fight.
What did you learn about yourself tonight?
I learned that I need to just trust my stuff a little bit more and not be intimidated, by people, what they have, and just to trust what I have. Like I said before, I definitely move very fluently when I'm going against a heavy bag or a coach with mitts. And tonight, I kind of felt gangly and uncoordinated at some points. I know that came from slight insecurity in my attacks.
September 22nd, 2012, UFC 152, Jones vs. Belfort, Toronto, Ontario. Originally scheduled as Jon Jones vs. Dan Henderson at UFC 151, 3 weeks prior, Henderson pulls out with an injury less than 2 weeks before the fight. Jon Jones declines to face Chael Sonnen as a late-notice replacement. Soon afterwards, the UFC cancels the entire card. Jones is rebooked against yet another former UFC champion, Vitor Belfort.
Jones, what's the relationship right now between you and Dana? Because we've heard so many different things going on. You guys love each other, you hate each other.
Hate him. I hate him. I hate everything about him. No, I'm joking. Dana White's awesome, man. Like I've said before, Dana White is a very passionate guy. He takes the passion, his passion, and he goes to like big meetings, and he's talking to a lot of people about getting MMA, legalized and having people endorse MMA. And he has this passion, and his passion is honestly the reason why we're all here right now. So when he's upset with you, he's going to be passionate. So I forgive Dana White for any insults he might have given me, and I'm looking forward to talking to him and just moving forward. It's like I've said before, me and Dana White are both ambassadors of this great sport, and two of us not being on the same page really makes no sense for anyone. I really want to get this sport as far as possible and get the word out, and I think working along with Dana in the UFC is a great way to do that. So I'm looking forward to just moving forward, putting on this great fight, UFC 152, and putting this past us. Ultimately, why wasn't there a great card? What was wrong with that card? Why did it have to get canceled? I watch bar fights. I love fights, no matter what level it is. So I think it was more of an insult to the other fighters on the card that, pretty much, it was almost like saying they weren't good enough to host the card without me and Dan Henderson. And I think it was more of an offensive thing. They should be mad at the superiors, not mad at me. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think at the end of the day, I probably would have done what was best for my career. And I can't really carry the weight of what happened because it really wasn't my thing. I showed up to fight. My teammates was on that card. I would have loved to have been able to watch them fight. But I think some real questions need to be asked to Dana about why the fight got canceled.
And how do you think the fans here in Toronto will react to you? Because obviously you've become sort of this polarizing figure, but if it wasn't for your decision, they wouldn't have a chance to see a UFC light heavyweight title fight. So do you think they will actually greet you with cheers as opposed to boos here in Toronto?
I'm hoping that people are grateful for me being here and being able to entertain them ultimately. But I'm predicting that I'll probably get booed more than cheered. But I'm okay with it. I've come to terms with it, and I'll still compete at my best.
I'm here with the champion, ladies and gentlemen. You've maintained a great sense of humor through all this. John, this is a real experienced opponent you're taking on, a guy who's been around the game for a long time. Give us your thoughts on Vitor and what tomorrow night means to you.
Well, I honestly believe that Vitor is one of the best in the world. You know, it's as good as it gets. And I'm excited to go out there and do my best, do what I always do.
I'm excited to watch you, sir. Good luck to you. The champion, ladies and gentlemen, Johnny Bones Jones!
Jones defeats Belfort by key lock in round 4.
I would rate the performance. I think it was a good performance, but there's definitely a lot of room to improve. Vitor had me second guessing myself. I just got to get more comfortable in the octagon. I worked so hard on my stand-up and so hard on my wrestling and things. I definitely need to embrace jiu-jitsu more and be a person who practices what I preach, and I definitely preach being a mixed martial artist and being passionate about all martial arts. But I can admit that jiu-jitsu isn't something that I do every day. So I thought my top game looked really poor. I think the ground and pound was pretty good. That's something that Greg Jackson really prides himself on, is having good ground and pound. Striking was fair. And as far as getting the fans behind me again, I think I have a lot of fans behind me. Obviously, there's going to be people who support you, and there's going to be people who want to see you fall, and that just goes with being in the position that I am in. But the biggest thing is just to focus on the people who is pulling for you, rooting for you, want to see you make it, and just focus on them.
With a performance like that, considering how resilient he was, he didn't tap, obviously, and he fought out of it, does that sort of win the fans back? Do you think that all is forgotten now?
I sure hope so. John is a really good guy. He's such a tough warrior. And to see, he was in trouble. And, he showed a lot of heart and a lot of guts. And some other people might not have done that. And I hope he inspired a lot of people tonight.
He came out to Bob Marley's Could You Be Loved. What message was being sent there?
I think he was asking if he could be loved.
April 27th, 2013. UFC 159, Jones vs. Sonnen, Newark, New Jersey. Despite coming from a title loss as a challenger at middleweight, the UFC books Chael Sonnen as Jon Jones' next opponent.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Can I turn on a shake? Turn on you? Sorry, dick.
He's changed a little bit as far as his public persona.
He's changed a lot. Jon Jones has changed a lot. And what you have to understand is that he came into this business as a kid. I mean, he's a young kid, and all the fame and all the pressure and all the stuff. I think he's really starting to catch his stride now. And I mean, look at the shape he's in for this fight. I couldn't be happier with Jon Jones.
Does he have any shot in hell against you? Do you give him even a 0.01% chance?
Chael is a great fighter, man. He's a great fighter. People are just disregarding him completely, and I'm not. My camp is not. We've seen what he did to Anderson. We see what he did to Brian Stan. I saw what he did to Nate Marquardt. He's legit. He's legit. He doesn't always come out on top, but he always brings a fight. And I've never fought in a guy who's a southpaw, who actually shoots from the southpaw stance and things like that. So style makes matchups, and I'm taking this very seriously. I believe that this could be the fight of my life, to be honest with you, or I could just dominate him and eat him alive. One of those are true, and we'll find out which one is going to be true. I'm ready for both of them.
Jones successfully defeats Sonnen by finishing him by TKO late in the first round. August 3rd, 2013, UFC 163, Aldo versus the Korean Zombie, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The 8-1 middleweight makes his UFC debut against fellow Brazilian Cesar Ferreira. Santos would lose by guillotine choke only 47 seconds into the first round. Marreta would win his next match over Ronnie Marks by first-round TKO at UFC Fight Night 38, Shogun vs. Henderson 2. Thiago Santos would go on to lose his following fight against Uriah Hall at UFC 175. September 21st, 2013, UFC 165, Jones versus Gustafson, Toronto, Ontario. Jones meets the Swedish fighter Alexander Gustafson.
In a fight, you know, anything can happen. So my job is to respect him wholeheartedly, train, give it my all. But with that being said, you know, because I respect him wholeheartedly and because I study so much, I see exactly where he truly is. And I know where I am, I know what I've done, and I believe in my training. So I would just say I have a really honest assessment of what I've accomplished and what he's accomplished, the way he's performed, the way I performed, and I speak about it honestly. And every fighter has a chance to win a fight, but my job is to make sure he has very, very small chances, and I think I've done that. Personality-wise, I think he seems like a great kid, a great young man. As a fighter, I believe that I'm better than him in literally every way.
We are still buzzing here in Toronto because we just witnessed an instant classic between the reigning and defending UFC light heavyweight champion Jon Jones and Alexander Gustafson. Who'd you have it for?
Well, I scored a 3-2 for Jones. I had 2-4-5 for Jones and 1-3 for Gustafson. I think a lot of people I talked to had something similar to that, but obviously it was a very close fight, so a lot of people were kind of going back and forth. I did hear a couple people who had it for Gustafson. So, I mean, we talked before this fight happened. We said, who's going to be this guy's rival? He doesn't have a rival. Who's going to be his Joe Frazier, that sort of thing for Muhammad Ali. I don't know if this is the guy, but that was the event that needed to happen for Jones to sort of establish that was somebody. Now, when they roll it back and they have a rematch, which it seems like that would be, depending on how things go, the way that the UFC would look at going for it, we might have the seedlings for something like that, which is kind of a cool thing because in Jon Jones' era, so far we haven't seen that.
Jones would go on to defend his title once again at UFC 172 over Glover Teixeira. January 3rd, 2015, UFC 182, Jones versus Cormier. Jon Jones is finally set to face his rival, the undefeated Daniel Cormier.
This is the Ali Frazier. I've never had more people interested in a fight in my entire career. It's just the most random people, old ladies, and just, you know, almost everybody I've run into. I feel like this fight has definitely elevated me and Daniel's exposure level. And so as far as just publicity-wise, this is the Ali Frazier, supposedly.
You don't feel that way deep down? Like, you don't feel the tension there? The world is watching?
The world is definitely watching, but I don't feel too much tension. I've been in these situations so many times before, and I don't think people are really grasping that. You know, I think to the fans and to media and to everybody else, you know, this is just so crazy. The only thing that's been crazy about this fight to me is what happened at the press conference and the amount of exposure this fight's got. I thought, you know, it's a little wild, but to me and my camp, this is what we do, man. This is what we do. Do I have nerves? I have nerves going into this fight. But I have nerves going into every fight. Okay. But, you know, you gotta really try to put yourself in my mind for a minute and think about what I've been against. You know, this is not the first guy that's supposed to be a monster. And every time I go out there and I do my job. And so just through proving myself over and over again, my confidence and my self-belief is at an all-time high.
Why are people so obsessed with the real Jon Jones and your image and what you say they scrutinize? Why do you think that is?
You know, I think it's because no one really knows me. No one really knows me, and you can't really criticize or scrutinize my technique because I do things right inside the octagon. So I think it just gives people something to talk about. I think it's it's something for the trolls, it's something for the fans to engage in, it's something for the MMA community to have something to blog about and stuff like that. Not to say that that I'm the center of everything, but for the people who like to talk about me, it's just, I look at it as, it's just something to have people talking. Well, you can't say that I gas out in my fights, you can't say that I do steroids or there's nothing to talk about when it comes to me as a fighter. You know, I do things right.
Jon Jones wins by decision.
You know, my plan is to become the greatest fighter of all time, and it's so feasible, it's so attainable. all I got to do is just stay focused and keep believing just the way I believe, and to keep working. And I do believe 2015 will be the year I solidify it. And as far as beating him in somewhat of his own style, you know, I watched him fight so much that I actually absorb who he is. I absorb grinding. I absorb, you know, I watched him hold my boy Frank Mir against the cage, and I was just like, I see what you're doing there. And just watching my opponents so much, I start to subconsciously inherit their talent and their gifts. And so a lot of times you see me do exactly what they would want to do to me, I'd end up doing it to them. I am proud to say that this team is unbroken. So everyone who brought Breaking Bones shirts saw what happened. Feel free to buy yourself an unbroken shirt from Reebok.
January 31st, 2015. UFC 183, Silva versus Diaz, Las Vegas, Nevada. The 9-3 Thiago Santos faces middleweight Andy Enz. Santos finishes Enz by TKO 2 minutes into the first round and gets his second win in the UFC. This would be the start of a 4-fight win streak for Santos. Maheta would beat Steve Bossie by incredible head kick knockout at UFC Fight Night 70, Machida versus Romero. Elias Theodorou by decision at UFC Fight Night 80, Namajunas versus Van Zandt. And Nate Marquardt by first round TKO at UFC 198, Verdum versus Miocic. April 28, 2015. Jon Jones stripped of title. The UFC strips Jon Jones of his light heavyweight title in the wake of his arrest on felony hit-and-run charges. Jones was set to face Anthony Johnson at UFC 187. Jones was arrested earlier that week in Albuquerque on a felony charge of leaving the scene of an accident involving death or personal injury.
And, you know, I see like the light turn green, and I assumed that it was my green light, but really it was a green light for, you know, people that were going straight in traffic, and I was actually turning. So I just stepped on the gas when I saw the green light, and I find myself driving right into ongoing traffic. And yeah.
Did you get hurt?
I didn't get hurt. I didn't get hurt, no.
So it was a 3-car accident, right?
Yeah, I think I hit one car, and then that car collided into another car.
Do you remember what was going through your mind when you got into the accident? Like, were you aware, like, what have I done? Like, what were you saying to yourself? What were you thinking?
You know, it all happened so fast.
Yeah.
Initially, I knew I messed up big time. I started thinking about, well, first I realized I wasn't hurt.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think subconsciously I just figured, all right, nobody's gotten hurt. You know, I'm not hurt. Maybe we didn't hit that hard. I just thought to myself, man, I went out last night. I haven't been home yet. I probably still smell like the night before. I need to get myself out of here. You know, this is going to be terrible. This is going to be messy. I got to go. I was afraid, man. I freaked out. And I was afraid to talk to the police at the time. So I just thought, let me get myself away from this.
April 23rd, 2016, UFC 197, Jones versus St. Preux, Las Vegas, Nevada. Jon Jones makes his UFC return to face late-notice contender Ovince St. Preux for the interim UFC Light Heavyweight Championship. Jones cruises to a decision victory and becomes interim UFC champion.
I gave Daniel the finger leaving the octagon. It felt great to do. It creates buzz. It gets people ready for the fight. You know, it's like, okay, you know, me and DC don't like each other. He's been in my sights this whole time. We had a minor bump in the road. We had to take a little detour, and now it's back to you know, this beef with DC. So it wasn't, there was not too many emotions involved with me doing it. It was more for fun. It was more to get a reaction. from the fans and restart this storyline between me and DC.
July 9th, 2016, UFC 200, Tate versus Nunes, Las Vegas, Nevada. Originally scheduled Cormier versus Jones as the main event for UFC 200, Jones would be pulled off the card due to a positive PED test announcement just days before the fight. Jon Jones would subsequently be stripped of his interim title.
Mark, it was a surreal sight in many ways, especially when you consider the kind of mood Jon Jones was in less than 24 hours ago. In the best mood possible, just 72 hours away from his fight. Now here we are, a complete 180. He's crying in front of the media. Didn't say too much as far as what the substance was, what's, the next step for him. But I'm curious, just right off the bat, what was your biggest takeaway from what we saw here moments ago?
It's just kind of sad. The whole thing is kind of sad, and like you said, it's amazing how quickly things can turn in this sport where less than 24 hours ago, Jon Jones was on another dais in another part of MGM Grand talking trash to Daniel Cormier, talking about a fight that's going to probably make him a lot of money. Now that fight is off. Now he's possibly facing a 2-year ban from the sport, just like that, in less than 24 hours. It's unbelievable.
Jon, I'm just wondering, have you had a chance to communicate with DC at all? And if you haven't, what's your message to him? What would you say to him?
I haven't had the opportunity to talk to him. And I just wanted to tell him that I'm sorry. That's really it. I know this fight meant a lot to him.
Earlier on the card, Thiago Santos would lose to top middleweight contender Gegard Mousasi. Maheta would also go on to lose his following fight against Eric Spicely at UFC Fight Night 85, Cyborg vs. Landsberg. July 8, 2017, UFC 213, Romero vs. Whitaker, Las Vegas, Nevada. Maheta gets back on the winning track by defeating Jack Marshman at UFC Fight Night 105, Lewis vs. Brown. Santos is set to face Gerald Meerschaert at UFC 213. Santos wins in a dominant performance and finishes his opponent by ground and pound in the second round. Maheta would follow up this performance with 2 more victories. First, a round 1 knockout over Jack Hermansson at UFC Fight Night 119, Machida vs. Brunson. And then, Thiago Santos faces future light heavyweight title contender Anthony Smith at UFC Fight Night Machida vs. Anders. Santos defeats Smith in a fight of the year type performance from each fighter. The win streak would be snapped after suffering a knockout loss at the hands of David Branch at UFC Fight Night 128, Barboza vs. Lee. July 29, 2017, UFC 214, Cormier vs. Jones 2, Anaheim, California. Jon Jones returns to action after a year suspension to once again face Daniel Cormier for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship.
How long do you think I've been doing steroids?
Well, you're probably you've earned a title fight, so I imagine you're about 3-0 in the UFC, so those first few fights. Ovent St. Preux, Guzmão, and Boris Bonner, or whatever his name is. What's that guy's name that he beat? Stephan Bonner. Stephan Bonner. Those 3 fights is when you didn't do steroids, but everything else in the middle is eliminated.
When I started powerlifting 4 days a week, and I started, with these chicken ass legs with my bad genetics, I started deadlifting 600 pounds, squatting 500 pounds. USADA was in full effect. So how did I get away with that?
You did. I'm not saying you did it last year versus Ovent St. Preux. You were clean last year when you fought Ovent St. Preux.
When I was the biggest ever.
That's why you look like you look.
How do I look?
You're a bum. That's why you looked like a bum last time.
How do I look, DC?
Hey, that's all just, hey, listen, that's all just for show. That's all just for show. I don't care about that.
Who looks like a junkie here today?
Hey, that's just all for show.
Look at
you
this
can
guy's
show
face.
your 6-pack.
Who looks like a junkie?
You
here
can just
today?
show your six pack. That's fine. That's all
Who
for
looks
show.
like a junkie here today?
I look like a.
You
I'm
look
not.
like
I'm
a
not.
crackhead with a suit on.
Was that?
You look like a crackhead with a suit on.
I could look like a crackhead with a suit on, but I've never been a crackhead like you though. So you can say I look like one, but I've never been one. I've never been one.
Next question.
And in the main event, we saw the return of Jon Jones. He is now once again the light heavyweight champion of the UFC. He finished Daniel Cormier in the third round. It all started with a left head kick and then eventually some ground and pound. A knockout for Jon Jones 6.5 years after he became the youngest champion in UFC history. Once again, now he is the reigning champion in the 205-pound division.
Yeah, I felt like this was one of those fights that the world had to see. It was the biggest fight of the year, and I even heard rumors that Donald Trump was going to show up. Did any of you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, to be a part of that, it's inspirational. It lets me know that my story is one that the world could look at and get something from. It lets me know that that all the faith and all the hard work and consistency and pushing through, it's something that intrigues the world. I mean, there's never been a champion like me, a young champion. Well, there has been actually. I would say my career is kind of comparable to Mike Tyson, a guy who had it all, a guy who made a lot of mistakes. And I think I'm like a modern situation, and I think people are interested to see how I'm going to handle it. And I think that's what's most intriguing, is to see how someone can come back from so much bullshit, right?
How is this second title reign going to be different than the first one? What's it gonna, what's going to change for this one going forward?
Well, my effort. I think I'll make a conscious effort to just do better. I'm also a lot more aware of who I am and the responsibility that comes with being a champion, a UFC champion. And so I don't want to sit up here and make promises and say that I'm going to be a saint, because I'm a wild motherfucker at the end of the day. God bless you guys.
However, Jones would fail his fight week drug test and would be stripped of his third UFC championship title. The fight would also be overturned and declared a no contest. August 4th, UFC 227, Dillashaw vs. Garbrandt 2, Los Angeles, California. Santos is matched up against UFC newcomer Kevin Holland. Marreta would go on to win by decision, but more importantly, this would be Santos' final fight at middleweight.
Do you feel like that light heavyweight might be in the future in a few fights?
Sim, a gente já vem pensando em subir para os meio pesados, mas tem alguns caras ainda do peso médio que eu quero enfrentar, e alguns desses caras que eu quero enfrentar vão estar lutando dia 3 de novembro, e eu quero uma oportunidade de estar lá lutando contra algum deles.
Yes, we've been thinking about that, but there are some guys that in my weight class that I still want to fight, and they will be there in New York, and I want to fight them.
September 22nd, 2018, UFC Fight Night 137, Santos vs. Anders, Sao Paulo, Brazil. Thiago Santos makes a quick, short-notice return to the cage. This time as a UFC Fight Night main event opposite another short-notice replacement fighter, Eric Anders. The two middleweights face each other at 205 pounds. Marreta wins by TKO at the end of round 3.
And your big characteristic is your power and your punches in the division below where you fight. Do you think that fighting in this division, you're going to lose some impact on the athletes because they're more prepared, or is there nothing?
Acho que tem,
is it not like that?
Tem muita coisa que muda, né?
I think a lot changes.
Apesar meus golpes também ficar mais potentes,
Even though my
mas eu
punches
senti também que eu fiquei
heavier,
mais resistente. Eu tomei golpes
feel that I
duros
was
do Eric ali
more resistant.
e
I
não
took
senti.
some hard punches
Assim,
and I didn't feel them.
Eu no médio,
At
devido
middleweight,
ao corte de peso,
due to the weight cut,
e não a gente não conseguir se recuperar 100%.
And not being able to recover 100%.
Eu fico pouco frágil. Né?
I'm a little bit fragile.
Tanto é que eu tive nocaute.
I had a
cara que não era nocauteador, me acertou
for
golpe.
A guy that wasn't a knockout
sabe?
artist,
eu fiquei muito chateado com
he
aquela
landed
luta.
A punch. I was really upset with that
hoje
fight.
eu tomei direto do Anderson,
Today,
cortou aqui, tomei golpes
he
duros,
landed
que
across,
ele tem a mão pesada,
heavy blows,
mas eu não
he's got
senti,
heavy hands,
sabe?
But
Não me
I didn't
abalou.
feel it. It
Então
didn't
isso
rock
também
me.
é bom.
So that's
né?
good
Não
too.
só meus golpes ficar mais
Not
fortes,
only are my punches
mas eu ficar mais
stronger,
resistente
but
também.
I'm also more
Então,
resistant.
tem muita coisa em jogo que
There's
a gente tem que botar na balança, ver os prós e contras, né? E ver qual caminho a gente vai seguir.
Para acabar, você...
December 8th, 2018, UFC 231, Holloway vs. Ortega, Toronto, Ontario. Santos makes his second light heavyweight appearance, this time against top 10 ranked veteran Jimmy Manuwa.
How has life been different at 205?
Como a vida é diferente no 93?
Just generally.
Genericamente.
Mais comida.
Food.
Food? Does that make things more enjoyable for you in the lead up to this?
Faz as coisas serem mais prazerosas para você?
Sim, com certeza. Treino melhor, chego melhor na semana da luta, é outro clima.
Yeah, I train better. I feel better fight week. Yeah, it's certainly better.
Is there part of you that wishes you would have made this move in the past, like earlier, or are you kind of content with how it came to be?
Tem uma parte de você que queria ter feito essa mudança antes ou você está contente do jeito que foi?
Não, foi do jeito que tinha que ser, no momento certo. É isso aí.
That was the way it had to be at the right moment. Remember, I got this guy who's a welterweight.
That's true.
The Hammer Maheta wins the slugfest by KO late into round 2.
I am very happy. I feel good. Now 205 is my division. I feel better.
So we thought you might still be playing around between divisions, but was it this result that helped you say light heavyweight is where I'm going to stay?
Você estava brincando entre uma divisão e a outra, ou seja, mudando de divisão o tempo todo. Você acha que com essa performance de hoje é a sua chegada, a sua marca na divisão?
Yeah, of course. Cheguei já com o pé na porta e é o seguinte, agora eu sou top 10 da divisão e eu quero lutar com o top 5.
He say that he's in the division. He wants to stay in the top 5 and he wants to fight. He believes he's a top 10. He want to fight a top 5 next year for sure.
Were you expecting the type of fight that happened tonight? I think we all thought it was going to be a war, but did you expect it to be that much of a war like it was?
Você esperava que fosse essa luta? Lógico que sim, né?
Yeah.
O que você queria?
Eu esperava já. O Jimmy é um cara que, quando ele anda pra frente, ele luta muito bem. Então, a nossa estratégia era fazer ele andar pra trás e golpear ele e fazer ele sentir dor.
That was exactly what he was looking for. The strategy was to really not let Jimmy control the octagon. Was for us to push the fight on him and to bring the pain to him, and that's exactly the way it happens.
Santos would go on to win his next fight as the main event for UFC on ESPN Plus 3, Blachowicz vs. Santos in Prague, Czech Republic. December 29th, 2018, UFC 232, Jones vs. Gustafson 2, Inglewood, California. Originally set to take place in Las Vegas, Nevada, the UFC makes an unprecedented move, relocating the entire card to California, citing licensing issues with the Nevada Athletic Commission. The Vice President of Athlete Health and Performance, Jeff Nowitzki, said, "Can't make everyone happy, but it was the right thing to do." Jones is set to rematch Alexander Gustafson for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship.
You know, I am in an interesting spot in the UFC. You know, I feel like I'm a polarizing athlete, and it's just gonna follow me. You know, it's gonna follow me. The way I deal with that is by waiting for USADA and now VADA to continue doing their research of what's going on in my body, and I think through their study I'll be vindicated. And just continue trying to stay on the right path, you know, trying to do the right things and just focus on the things I can control.
whatever this guy's saying, it's just bullshit. He's just terrible, man. This guy is terrible. I'm telling you, he's terrible. You know, I'm here to fight. It was nothing else. I was just here to fight. But the thing is, I'm just like, you know, I'm flexible. It's all good. But, you know, we have friends, family, fans coming into downtown having plans. They have their budgets. And they have to like reschedule, we're planning everything, whatever. I mean, whatever this guy is saying, you can't take it serious. You can't take it serious at all. He's just terrible. He is terrible. And he will eat it. He will eat it on Saturday night. I'm telling you, he will eat everything on Saturday night.
I'll ask you again. Do you believe Jon Jones is a cheater?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Man, this guy is not confident. He has to put shit in his body to be confident. That's how he is.
So Dana, wanted to ask you, has there been any compensation that's going to be given to the fighters since they'll have an increased income tax?
Any conversation what?
Compensation for the increased income tax in California for the other fighters?
Who's going to pay my income tax in California?
And also the increased medical costs?
What?
And the increase for the medicals for California State.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's either that or not fight. Nobody gets paid and nobody does anything. It is what it is. We had to move it. And listen, it's costing everybody more money. It is what it is.
So me, I was no genius and throughout schooling. So I'm learning all these things about pictograms and picograms. See there, exactly. I'm learning as we speak. I'm still learning what this stuff is. And the funniest thing is someone trying to convince me as an undefeated fighter that I'm not confident because of a pictogram. Say it again. Say it with a pictogram. I think this is so funny that the person who lost is making an excuse of a microscopic chemical that is, instead of just saying Jon Jones's balls is way bigger than mine, and that's why he beat me. This guy
who has the smallest balls there?
This guy is.
I'm the one not have illegal shit in my body.
This guy.
I say I have balls. You don't have balls, my friend.
This guy has found.
You get illegal shit in your body.
This guy has found a way to justify why he lost. It's hilarious.
I heard you and Jeff Nowitzki say, and Andy Foster said it as well, that you are 100% sure that this isn't as a result of a new ingestion. This is the same metabolite that was in his system back in July of 2017. The question I don't seem to find the answer to is, how do you know that?
Because that's what the experts are saying. The experts are telling us that's what they do. How else would I know? The experts are telling us.
And I don't expect you to know, but who are the experts?
Ask Nowitzki. Call Nowitzki and set up an appointment to have an interview with him. He'll tell you.
Ariel, I can help you with that.
You know, you probably can't, actually. You let Nowitzki answer that question for you.
I would love
Nowitzki's the expert on that. Jon Jones is calling it a pictogram, for Christ's sakes, okay?
Unfortunately, he's not
I don't think he can answer that question, so talk to Nowitzki.
Okay, he's also said that there's 12 to 14 other cases of this happening.
Yeah, you got to talk to Nowitzki. If you want to talk drugs, talk to Nowitzki.
Okay, can I just ask John what he wanted to say? John, what did you want to say?
I'm going to take the advice of my boss and have you talk to Jeff.
Yeah, let Nowitzki talk about that.
Okay.
I think through science, I think I will be vindicated. I've passed the polygraph test. With pretty much the FBI, which means if I was lying, I go to jail for perjury. I passed a polygraph test, saying that I've never intentionally taken anything illegal to enhance myself. And now that science is starting to show itself, you will realize that, I mean, half the people that are judging me haven't opened a chemistry book since high school. And so I mean, it's true. It's so true. And so people are ignoring the fact that a picogram, people are ignoring the fact, this shit is so small that it almost should have never been brought up. It's so small. It's such a small amount. It has no effect. And there is something in my system that is microscopic, that is so small, that does not help me do shit. There we go. A soul. I like that. And there's no reason to come at USADA about this. What I am is a guinea pig for our sport. What I'm finding out is that this shit is happening all across sports. There's so many athletes right now that has the M3 metabolite in their body, and it's coming in pulses and it's coming in waves. But my situation is the most public. But the reason why I'm here today being able to fight is because it gives me no advantage. Science is getting so good that they're finding shit. I guarantee you there's many people in the audience that has shit that's on the ban list that's never done any type of steroid, that wouldn't even know what this shit is. So the fact of the matter is, there is something in my bloodstream. It does not give me any advantage, and I'm grateful that USADA found it, because I'll be able to educate myself and know more about it. And for fighters in the future, it's going to help out a lot of people. I think the science is just so strong. They're finding shit that you know, it's like, it's hard to explain. But I know for a fact that this is going to help fighters of the future and our sport. And no one said it should be easy being who I am. I accept the difficulty in it, and I'm up for the challenge. And like I said, through science, I feel like I'll be vindicated. So no worries. This is all going to be a blessing in disguise for me.
Jon Jones once again regains the UFC light heavyweight belt by defeating Gustafson by TKO.
When it comes to Daniel Cormier, he's always quiet, unless he's speaking out to discredit me, my legacy, my achievements. You know, every time he opens his mouth, and it works against him. I see the fans' reaction. They're just like, dude, leave Jon Jones alone for once. Dude, he beat you. You sound so bitter. He works his hardest to try to discredit and try to delegitimize the fact that I beat him twice. And the only thing I want to delegitimize as a retaliation is his claim of being the light heavyweight champion. He was never the light heavyweight champion. He never beat me. This has been my era since 2011. I want to make that loud and clear. DC is no champ. When we talk about an asterisk next to my name, there's going to be always an asterisk next to the idea of him being a champ. The only way he can shut me up, and what I'm saying right now, is to beat my ass. Simple. Me going to heavyweight would be making it extremely personal. And for me, I have no problem with DC. I have a problem when he comes out and says, see, I told you guys he's a cheater. I told you he's a cheater. I have no real problem with DC. I'm not gonna go to heavyweight and try to take everything from him and destroy his legacy and all that type of stuff. Is it possible that I could do that? It is possible. But I'm fine having mine and he can have his. DC needs to admit to the people that he was never the light heavyweight champion. Or face me at light heavyweight and shut me up.
March 2nd, 2019, UFC 235, Jones versus Smith, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Anthony Smith is a guy that many people feel like he kind of came out of nowhere. He was a middleweight, now he's a 205. He's won a bunch in a row. When did he first come onto your radar as someone that you thought you could possibly face one day?
Mainly like his last two fights was when I started noticing who he was. I never even knew who he was, you know, a few months ago. But I do respect him. I respect him tremendously. I respect every fighter. You know, last time I looked past the fighter, I almost lost to Alexander Gustafson, and I promised myself I'll never do that again. So yeah, we're up for the fight for sure.
Do you feel like he is using PEDs? Do you think he's a doper?
To be honest with you, I don't care. You know, it doesn't matter to me. Number one, but I was fighting for years before USADA was a thing. I've been fighting people on steroids my whole career. So it just genuinely doesn't matter. And I think with it, without it, Jon Jones is one of the greatest talents we've ever seen in MMA. And I don't think that any of that other stuff matters. I don't think that stuff would change that. With it or without it, Jon Jones is going to be the world champion. And that's just how it is. And that's the guy I'm preparing for. So it's all just a big distraction. And that's why I tune it out and I don't talk about it. And I just I genuinely don't care, man.
Jones wins by unanimous decision.
Just really disappointed. I don't know, man. I don't know what happened. I did exactly what I told everyone I wasn't going to do. I let Jon Jones sit back and be Jon Jones. You know, I don't know, I guess sometimes you just go in there, it's not your night, I guess, but that's just not good enough for me. I don't know, I just couldn't pull the trigger. And when I did, I didn't combo up like I was supposed to, and I don't know, man, I didn't do anything I was supposed to do, except for defend the takedowns, and I think I did a much better job of checking kicks than I have in the past, but my cardio held up, so all you fucking idiots can stop talking about it. I mean, that's really the only positive I can take from this, man. It's a whole fuck ton of negatives, that's for sure. I was in there, you know what I mean? And it wasn't, I don't feel like I got ran through. I just kind of got shut down. I mean, I don't feel like Jon Jones just went in there and beat the shit out of me. I just couldn't get going, you know? And I mean, that's Jon Jones, though, I guess. You know, he you know, I said I needed to force Jon Jones to fight me, and I didn't do that. You know, you know, he didn't fight me. He nullified me, and it's gonna haunt me for a long time. And you know, I'm gonna have to get back to the drawing board and sit down with Mark and Scott and figure out what the fuck happened.
It was great. You know, it was a lot of fun. I felt really familiar tonight at work, a little bit too familiar actually. Like in my warm-up, there was like no nervousness, and that was making me uncomfortable. You know, the fact that there was no nervousness, I was almost questioning myself. Am I ready? Am I taking this seriously enough? And I know that I have done everything in my power to be prepared for this, but you know, I think a little bit of nerves are actually a good thing. And tonight, I just felt so doggone comfortable in there. But you know, I feel like that's God's grace too. You know, like, you know, He blesses me to have a sound mind, and so I can't ask for it and then be confused when my mind is sound and at peace with what I'm doing. You know, I feel like in the last round, I definitely could have done more. I'm not really proud of my fifth round, holding them against the cage like that. But at the same time, you know, there's a beloved Randy Couture who made a whole career out of the way I fought in the last round, holding people against the cage and just chipping away at them. I totally fought Anthony. If you look at the stats will show that I totally fought Anthony. And I feel like it was his job to get off the cage. It was his job to make it a fight. He was the one losing. Anthony's very durable, and he's known to come back and win, even in the worst situations. You can beat the crap out of him for 3 rounds, and at the very end of the 3rd round, he can knock you out. He's known for that. So in a world championship fight, if he's going to allow me to hold him against the cage, I'm going to do that. At the end of the day, you know, it's about impressing the fans and being entertaining. And I have a lot of pride in being that. But I feel like rounds 1 through 4 was what the fans wanted to see. And the 5th round was for me and my camp, just to take home that new belt.
July 6, 2019, UFC 239, Jones versus Santos, Las Vegas, Nevada. Jon Bones Jones returns to Las Vegas to defend his title against the former middleweight and now surging light heavyweight, Thiago Santos.